My ex showed up at my wedding and dropped a shocking confession that left me frozen at the altar in front of everyone. I always thought weddings were supposed to feel like a fairy tale, and that day, standing there in a perfectly tailored navy suit, the air heavy with the scent of fresh lilies and polished wood, I genuinely believed I was living mine. The church was bathed in warm sunlight, spilling through stained glass windows, painting the pews with soft hues of blue, red, and gold. Family and friends filled every row. There were smiles everywhere, some wide and genuine, some tight-lipped and polite, but all eyes were on me. And honestly, I was okay with that, because in a matter of minutes, I was going to marry Emily, the woman I thought was my forever. If you told me 4 years ago I'd be here, I would have laughed in your face. Back then, I was a mess, emotionally wrecked, fresh out of a brutal breakup with Clara, my girlfriend of nearly 5 years. We'd lived together, talked about marriage, the whole deal. Then one day, out of nowhere, she told me she wasn't sure she loved me anymore. That single sentence shattered me. The breakup was messy, drawn out, and humiliating. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and yanked my heart out while I was still awake. For months, I walked around like a ghost, just existing, not living. And then, like a miracle, Emily appeared. I met her at a friend's game night. She had this easy laugh that felt like sunlight after weeks of rain. She didn't push, didn't pry, just showed up in little ways. A coffee on my desk at work, a random text asking if I'd eaten, and I believe in you when I couldn't even believe in myself. Over the next year, she pieced me back together. And somewhere between late night drives and lazy Sunday mornings, I realized I was falling for her. I'm not going to pretend I was smooth about it. I was nervous as hell. I'd spent weeks planning, picked out a ring I thought she'd love, booked a table at the rooftop restaurant where we'd had our first date. It was a clear winter night. The city lights sparkled below us, the air just cold enough for her to lean into me for warmth. I stumbled through a rambling speech about how she'd changed my life, how I didn't know what I'd done to deserve her, and then I got on one knee. She gasped, covered her mouth with her hands, and tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered before I could even get the words out properly. "Of course, yes." That moment was etched in my memory like it had been carved in stone. Emily threw herself into the planning. She wanted a small, intimate ceremony. Close friends, family, no over-the-top extravagance. I agreed, partly because I wanted her happy and partly because I couldn't care less about the details as long as I ended the day married to her. We spent evenings scrolling through Pinterest boards, tasting cake samples, arguing over flower arrangements in the kind of playful way that makes you think, yeah, this is my person. Even my parents, who'd been wary of me dating again so soon after Clara, fell head over heels for Emily. My mom called her the daughter she always wanted. My dad said she brought me back to life. And honestly, she did. Or at least that's what I believed. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in a hotel room with my groomsmen. Jason, my best friend since college, was there, cracking jokes to keep me calm. We'd been through everything together. Late night study sessions, breakups, bad jobs, and worse landlords. If there was one guy I trusted with my life, it was Jason. The air felt electric. I'd imagined this day so many times, but the reality was somehow better. The suit fit perfectly. The cufflinks my dad had given me gleamed under the light, and the reflection in the mirror almost looked like a stranger, someone who had his life together. When we arrived at the church, people were already seated. The music was soft, just background enough to keep the atmosphere warm. I stood at the altar, my palms slightly sweaty, but my heart pounding with excitement. The music shifted, the signal that the bride was about to walk in. The guests rose from their seats, turning toward the doors. My breath caught. The heavy wooden doors at the back of the church creaked open. I could see the outline of Emily in her white dress just outside, her father holding her arm. And then the doors slammed shut again. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A second later, the doors opened, but it wasn't Emily standing there. It was Clara. If I'd been holding a glass, I would have dropped it. My ex, the woman I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, stood in the doorway like something out of a dream I'd tried to forget. She was dressed in a sleek, dark green dress that hugged her figure, her hair pinned back elegantly. She looked different, older, more poised, but her face was pale, almost strained, and her eyes, God, her eyes, locked on mine instantly. The entire church went silent, save for the faint creak of her heels on the aisle floor. I could feel every gaze flicking between us, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Why is she here? She stopped halfway down the aisle, her voice cutting through the silence. "I need to talk to you," she said. Her tone was steady, but there was something in it. Urgency. Maybe even fear. Emily's father stepped forward, frowning. "Now's not the time. It's about Emily," Clara interrupted, louder this time. The words hit me like ice water down my spine. I froze at the altar, my mouth dry, my mind a whirlwind of disbelief. Every eye in the room was on me. And in that moment, with my entire life about to change, I had no idea if I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life, or discover I'd already made it years ago. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't even breathe for a few seconds. Clara's words, "It's about Emily," hung in the air like a thundercloud about to burst. Somewhere in the crowd, someone coughed. A chair creaked. Emily's father's hand tightened on her arm in the back, clearly trying to understand what the hell was happening. I took a slow step down from the altar, My legs felt stiff, like I was wading through wet cement. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't stand there with everyone staring at me, waiting for me to react like some statue groom in a soap opera. "What are you doing here, Clara?" I asked, my voice low but sharp enough to cut through the silence. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting to Emily, still standing behind the closed doors with her father, before locking back on me. "We need to talk. Right now. Alone." "This is my wedding day," I said. "You can't just—" "It's about Emily," she repeated, louder this time. "She's been lying to you. For years." A ripple of whispers surged through the pews. I could feel the heat of 100 eyes burning into my skin. I clenched my jaw. "What are you talking about?" Her voice didn't shake when she answered. "She's been seeing someone else, and it's someone you know." I can't even describe what that moment felt like. One second, I was seconds away from promising forever to the woman I loved. The next, it was like the floor had cracked beneath me, and I was hanging on by a thread. Emily's voice cut through from the doorway. "Oh my God, are you serious? You came here to this?" She laughed, short, bitter. "Of course you did. Can't stand seeing me happy, can you?" Clara ignored her, stepping closer to me. She was holding a small clutch bag so tight her knuckles were white. "I have proof," she said. "Messages, pictures, receipts. But you need to hear everything before you make a decision." I shook my head, my thoughts firing off in every direction. Emily. Cheating? On me? With someone I know? It didn't make sense. Emily had been my rock. She'd been the one to pick up my pieces after Clara left me broken. She was the one who sat with me on nights I couldn't sleep, who brought me soup when I was sick, who told me she wanted a life with me. And yet, there was a flicker in my chest, something I didn't want to acknowledge. Memories of late night girls' nights. She said she was going to. Times she was vague about where she'd been. Moments when she pulled her phone close if I walked into the room. "She's lying." Emily's voice rose, firm and commanding now. She stepped into the church aisle, still in her wedding dress. Her face flushed, not from embarrassment, but from pure rage. "This is what she does. She ruins things. She ruined our relationship back then, and now she's trying to ruin ours. Ours." She said it like the word was a weapon. The guests were split, some leaning forward, hungry for the drama, others clearly uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact. Jason, my best man, was standing frozen to my left, looking like he was trying to calculate whether he should intervene or just disappear. Clara's eyes didn't leave mine. "Please, just hear me out. If I'm wrong, you can tell me to leave and I'll never bother you again. But if I'm right, you'll thank me for this someday." "Don't listen to her," Emily snapped. "She's obsessed with me, with you, with us. She's pathetic." I felt like my skull was splitting open. On one side, Emily, my fiancée, the woman I'd chosen to spend my life with. On the other, Clara, my ex, the woman who'd once hurt me worse than anyone else, but who now looked dead serious. No trace of smugness or petty revenge in her face. And the worst part, both of them were looking at me like my decision in the next few seconds could define the rest of my life. I glanced at Jason, searching for some kind of signal. He gave me nothing, just a tight jaw and a subtle shake of his head, like, "Don't go there." That tiny gesture hit me wrong. Why was he so quick to want me to shut this down? "All right," I said finally, my voice carrying just enough to quiet the murmurs. 5 minutes. Outside. Emily's eyes went wide. "Are you kidding me?" 5 minutes, I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. The church was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat as Clara and I walked down the aisle, past rows of stunned guests. Outside, the bright daylight felt almost blinding after the dim warmth inside. "Yellow." We stopped just past the church steps. Clara opened her clutch and pulled out her phone, unlocking it with quick, practiced movements. "I didn't want to believe it at first," she began. "When we broke up, I thought you were the only one who'd been faithful. But months ago, I overheard something at a party. A name. Emily's name. And Jason's." My chest tightened instantly. "Jason?" She nodded slowly, her eyes locked on mine. I didn't have proof back then. I figured maybe I misheard. But last month, I ran into Jason again. He was drunk, loose-lipped. He bragged, said it started right after you and Emily met. Said you were too blinded to notice. I felt my jaw clench so hard it ached. Clara swiped on her phone and handed it to me. Messages between them, hotel bookings, pictures, dates line up exactly with the nights she told you she was out with friends. I looked down. The first thing I saw was Emily's name on a text thread with Jason. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Same place next week." Another message a month later. "He's starting to suspect. Be careful." And then a picture, the kind you can't mistake for anything else. My hand tightened around the phone. I felt nauseous. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice low, almost dangerous. "Because I didn't want you walking into a marriage based on lies," she said simply. "I know I hurt you once. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear this from. But I couldn't just let you go through with it without knowing." Behind me, the church door swung open. Emily stepped out, still in her dress, her face a mask of fury. "Unbelievable," she spat. "You're actually listening to her? She's delusional. She probably faked all that. She's jealous because you're happy and she's alone." Clara didn't even flinch. "You can call me whatever you want, Emily, but he knows the truth now." I stood there, phone still in my hand, my mind a war zone. One side screaming that Clara was manipulating me. The other whispering that every doubt I'd buried over the last 3 years was now clawing its way to the surface. And standing between the two women, one who'd broken my heart years ago and one who, according to this evidence, had been doing it slowly for years, I realized something terrifying. No matter what I chose next, my life would never be the same. I don't remember deciding to walk further away from the church. One second, we were standing on the stone steps with Emily spitting venom, and the next, I was striding toward the small garden behind the building, Clara matching my pace without a word. The air back there was quieter, the hum of distant traffic mixing with the soft rustle of leaves. I could still hear the muffled sounds of movement inside the church, the shuffling of guests, the occasional sharp voice, but it felt like we'd stepped into a different world entirely. I turned to her, my voice low but shaking. Tell me everything, from the start. She took a slow breath, like she'd been rehearsing this moment in her head for weeks. After we broke up, I wasn't doing great. I kept thinking about you, wondering if you'd moved on, if you were happy. Then one night, maybe 6 months later, I saw Emily. I frowned. Where? At a little wine bar downtown. I was with a coworker. Emily was at a table near the back, with Jason. I felt something sharp twist in my gut. Could have been a friendly drink, I muttered automatically, though my voice lacked conviction. Clara nodded. That's what I told myself. I mean, they weren't touching or anything, but there was this closeness. You can tell when two people aren't just friends. I didn't respond. I was replaying all the nights Jason had bailed on plans, all the times Emily had come home late, brushing off my questions with vague answers. I let it go. She continued. I figured it wasn't my place and I didn't have proof, but then I saw them again. This time at a hotel. My head snapped up. A hotel? She nodded grimly. Not one of those big chain places either. A boutique hotel out by the lake. I was meeting a friend for lunch at a cafe across the street. Saw them walk out together. He had his arm around her. I felt my throat tighten. You didn't say anything then? She looked down. You and I weren't speaking. And honestly, I thought maybe I was just bitter. I didn't want to be the crazy ex who ruins everything. So I stayed quiet. She shifted her clutch under her arm, eyes flicking to the church for a moment before locking back on me. But about a month ago, I ran into Jason at a party. He was drunk, sloppy drunk. I was in the kitchen getting a drink and he just started talking. Bragging, actually. Said you'd never find out. Said it was hilarious. That he was your best man. My hands curled into fists. What exactly did he say? She hesitated, then spoke carefully. Like each word was a landmine. He said it started not long after you and Emily met. That the first time, they both agreed it was a mistake. But then it kept happening. For years. He said you weren't too in love to see it. The ground under me felt like it was tilting. I could picture Jason's smirk, the way he always slapped me on the back, the way he'd teased me about being whipped when I'd skip guys' nights for Emily. Clara pulled out her phone again, her hand steady this time. After that night, I started digging. I called in a favor from a friend who works at that hotel. Got the booking records, matched dates to nights Emily told you she was with friends. Then I found the messages. She handed me the phone. My stomach nodded as I scrolled. Text. Jason, Emily. Same suite as last time? I'll get the wine. Text. Emily, Jason. Make sure no one sees us. He's starting to notice little things. I kept scrolling. There were dozens of them. Months apart at first, then weeks, then sometimes just days. And then the photos. Selfies of the two of them in that boutique hotel room. Emily in a robe, Jason shirtless. Dates and timestamps burned into the corner of each image like they were daring me to confront the truth. I had to force myself to hand the phone back before I smashed it against the stone bench nearby. He's inside, I said, my voice raw, standing at the altar, acting like my best friend. Claire's expression softened just a little. I know, and I know you probably hate me for showing up like this, but I couldn't let you marry her, not knowing what I know, not letting them both stand there and watch you promise your life to someone who's been lying to you since day one. You think this fixes anything? I shot back. You think telling me now, when I'm about to get married, is some kind of mercy? Her eyes dropped to the ground for a moment, but her voice stayed steady. It's not mercy, it's the truth. And I'd rather you hate me for telling you the truth than love me for letting you live a lie. I turned away from her, looking toward the side entrance of the church. Jason was in there. Emily was in there. My parents were in there. Everyone I cared about was waiting for me to step back inside and continue pretending my life was perfect. But now, all I could see in my head were those texts, those hotel receipts, those photos, and the sound of Jason's laugh. The one I'd always thought was genuine now felt like a knife twisting in my back. I closed my eyes, drawing in a slow breath. When I opened them, again, Clara was watching me closely, not with pity, but with a kind of quiet understanding. You're going to have to decide, she said softly. Do you want to go through with it and live with this, or do you want to face it now while you still can? I didn't answer her right away, because the truth was, I didn't know which was worse, losing the life I thought I had or realizing it had never been real in the first place. I didn't storm back into the wedding hall like in those dramatic movies. I didn't slam doors or shout anyone's name. No, I walked, slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last, my chest tightening like someone was cinching a belt around my ribs. Jason was standing off to the side near the bar, trying to look casual, but I could see the tension in his jaw. The best man, my best friend, since middle school. The guy who helped me move into my first apartment, who stood by me through breakups, job losses, and family drama. And apparently, the guy who had been sleeping with my fiancée. I motioned for him to follow me. He hesitated for half a second before plastering on a fake smile and strolling over like nothing was wrong. We stepped into one of the side rooms, small, quiet, away from the buzz of whispers leaking through the open doorway. I shut the door. Jason, I said, my voice low but shaking. We need to talk. He gave me that familiar smirk, the one he used when he was about to make a joke to lighten the mood. Man, if this is about Claire's little stunt, you know she's just... Cut the crap, I snapped. Claire told me everything. About you. And Emily. For a moment, he didn't react. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, that? Dude, it was nothing. Just a stupid mistake, alright? It happened once, forever ago. We were drunk, we weren't thinking. Once? I stepped closer. You're telling me once? His smirk faltered. Because Clara has proof. I continued, my voice rising. Hotel receipts, photos, messages. And she said it started almost 2 years ago, which means it started right after Emily and I got together. So don't stand there and tell me it was once. Jason's eyes darted away. His shoulders slumped, and then he sighed, long and heavy, like he was finally letting the truth out. All right, he muttered. Yeah, it wasn't once. My stomach dropped, even though I already knew. Hearing him say it made it real in a way Clara's words hadn't. How long? I asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. Almost 2 years, off and on. I mean, we weren't like together or anything. It wasn't serious. Not serious, I said, my voice cracking. You were sleeping with my fiancé, Jason. It's not like we planned it, he said quickly. It just happened. And then it kept happening. But it's been over for months, man. She loves you. I know she does. That's when the door opened. Emily slipped in, her face pale, her hands trembling. Jason, stop, she said, her voice shaky. You're making it sound worse than... Worse than what? I shot at her. Worse than you cheating on me with my best friend for 2 years? Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't deny it. I made a mistake, she said softly. A huge mistake. But it was just a phase. I swear I've changed. I love you now. I want to be with you. I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was sharp, bitter. The kind you let out when you're so angry you don't know what else to do. A phase? Emily, a phase is getting bangs you regret. A phase is buying a leather jacket you never wear. A phase is not 2 years of sleeping with my best man while telling me you love me. Jason looked at the floor. Emily reached for my arm. Please, listen to me. It's over. It's been over for months. I chose you. I want you. I pulled away. You chose me? After what? After you got bored with him? After you decided you'd had enough of your little secret fling? Outside the door, I could hear murmurs. Word was spreading through the guests. I pictured my mom sitting there, my cousins whispering, my coworkers glancing around awkwardly. The wedding I had dreamed about was already ashes. Jason finally spoke again. Look, man, I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. I'll make it right. I turned on him. You can't make it right. There's no fixing this. You were supposed to be my brother, and you were supposed to be my wife, I said to Emily. And both of you destroyed that. Emily's tears spilled over. We can still fix this, she whispered. We can get through this. Please just... No, I said, my voice firm now. We're not getting through anything. We're done. Both of you. The silence in that small room was suffocating. I opened the door and stepped back into the hallway. The whispers grew louder. Faces turned toward me, eyes wide with curiosity. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice. Bury this quietly or let the truth burn everything down in public. And I knew exactly which one I was going to choose. When I stepped back into the main hall, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it got. It wasn't the normal hush of people respectfully waiting for a ceremony to resume. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a crowd that knows something's wrong. You could practically hear the collective inhale, everyone's eyes darting between me, the empty spot at the altar, and the closed side room door behind me. I walked down the aisle slowly. I didn't have flowers in my hand or a ring to deliver, just the weight of truth sitting on my chest like a cinder block. Emily stood near the altar, her makeup streaked with tears she hadn't had time to fix. Jason wasn't there yet. The officiant, an older family friend, gave me a nervous smile like he wasn't sure whether to start reading vows or call 911. I stopped halfway down the aisle, turned to face everyone, and took the mic from the stand. Hey, I started, my voice calm, too calm. Before we continue, there's something I need to say. A few people shifted in their seats. Somewhere in the back, a fork clinked against a glass, the sound oddly loud in the silence. I looked at Emily. She was shaking her head, silently mouthing, please don't. But I've been silent for long enough. I know weddings are supposed to be about love and trust, I said, scanning the room. About committing yourself to someone you believe will stand by you through everything. I thought that's what today was. I thought that's who Emily was to me. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. But, I continued, my voice tightening, it turns out Emily has been lying to me. For years, she's been having an affair. Gasps rippled through the room like a shockwave. I let the words hang there for a moment, the weight of them settling into every corner. And it's not just that. The man she's been seeing, it's someone I trusted with my life. My best friend. My best man, Jason. All eyes turned toward the side door just as Jason emerged, his face pale and jaw clenched. The room exploded in whispers. I pointed at him. For almost 2 years, while I thought I was building a future with Emily, they were sneaking around behind my back. And I only found out today because someone I never expected to see again had the guts to tell me the truth. Emily's voice cracked as she stepped forward. That's not fair. It's the truth. I cut in, my voice louder now. You can dress it up however you want, call it a mistake, call it a phase, but you don't accidentally meet up in hotels. You don't accidentally send hundreds of texts. You don't accidentally keep it going for 2 years. An older aunt in the front row gasped so loudly it was almost comical. Jason muttered something under his breath, but I kept going. I don't want anyone here thinking this is some misunderstanding we'll work through. No, this wedding is over right here, right now. Emily's knees buckled slightly, like I'd physically hit her. Jason just stared at the floor, his hands shoved into his pockets. I scanned the crowd. To my family, sorry you had to find out like this. To my friends, choose your company wisely, because I clearly didn't. And to everyone else, don't ever ignore your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Emily's voice broke. Please, can we talk about this in private? Don't do this here. You made it public the moment you betrayed me, I said, setting the mic back on the stand. So I'm ending it the same way. I turned and walked straight down the aisle, past the guest who avoided eye contact, past my mother's stunned face, past Clara standing in the back with her arms crossed. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She just watched me, quietly. Like she knew this was the only way it could end. Behind me, I could hear Emily sobbing and Jason cursing under his breath. Guests were whispering, some already reaching for their phones. By the time I stepped outside into the crisp air, the noise inside had turned into chaos. And just like that, the wedding that was supposed to mark the start of my life became the day I burned the whole thing to the ground. If you've ever had the rug pulled out from under you, you'll know that the silence afterward is worse than the fall. The wedding was over. Not postponed, not, we'll figure it out later. Over. For the first week, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Friends, relatives, coworkers, everyone wanted the real story. Some out of concern, others just to feed their curiosity. I didn't answer most of them. I wasn't ready to turn my life into small talk at someone else's dinner table. I avoided social media entirely. I didn't want to see my name in some cousin's vague post about heartbreak or hear through the grapevine that Jason had already spun the story in his favor. Instead, I sat in my apartment staring at the half-unpacked boxes from when Emily and I had planned to move in together after the wedding. The irony was sickening. The betrayal wasn't just about what they did, it was about the timeline. 2 years. 2 years of smiling at me while sleeping with someone else. 2 years of letting me make plans, build dreams, and picture a future that was nothing but a joke to them. I started questioning everything. Not just Emily, not just Jason, me. How did I miss the signs? Was I too trusting? Too naive? Did I just want to believe in love so badly that I ignored my own instincts? It was in the middle of that self-doubt spiral when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen outside of that chaotic wedding day, Clara. I almost didn't answer. The part of me that still remembered our breakup 3 years ago wanted to let it go to voicemail. But curiosity and maybe a bit of gratitude made me swipe to pick up. Hey, she said. Her voice was softer than I remembered. I hope this isn't a bad time. I almost laughed. Every time is kind of a bad time right now, but go ahead. I just wanted to say, I know showing up at your wedding wasn't exactly a subtle move, she said, letting out a nervous chuckle, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't tell you what I knew. I leaned back on the couch. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. You could have stayed out of it. You could have let me find out after it was too late. Honestly, she said, I thought you'd hate me for it. And maybe part of me thought I deserved that after how things ended between us. That caught me off guard. We hadn't really talked about our breakup since it happened. Back then, I thought she'd just fallen out of love with me. I didn't push for details because, well, pride. What exactly did happen? I asked quietly. She hesitated. We were young. I was stupid. I let my own insecurities get in the way. I didn't cheat, but I also didn't fight for us when I should have. And when things started falling apart, I just let them. There was a long pause. I'm not calling to rewrite history, she added. I just wanted you to know that what happened at your wedding wasn't about revenge or making myself feel better. I genuinely didn't want you to marry someone who would hurt you like that. I rubbed my temples. Well, mission accomplished? Not exactly how I planned to start my married life, but I guess it's better than finding out after the honeymoon. She laughed lightly, then her tone softened. I hope you don't let this turn you cold, okay? You're a good guy, just choose better next time. We talked for another 20 minutes, not as exes, not as almost lovers, but as two people who'd both learned a lot about heartbreak. When we hung up, I didn't feel closure exactly, but I felt lighter. A week later, I signed up for therapy. I'd always thought it was for people going through real trauma, as if betrayal didn't count. But sitting across from someone who didn't take sides, who didn't know Emily or Jason, was the first time I'd been able to untangle my feelings without worrying about how it sounded. Therapy wasn't magic. It didn't make the pain vanish, but it helped me stop replaying the wedding in my head every night before I slept. It helped me accept that Emily's betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth, it was a reflection of hers. I started seeing friends again. Not the mutual ones who'd been at the wedding and didn't know how to look at me without pity, but the ones I'd neglected over the years because I'd been too busy with my relationship. My parents invited me over for dinner more often, my mom making way too much food, just in case. Months passed. The sharpness of the pain dulled into something manageable. I still thought about it sometimes, about the look on Emily's face when I called off the wedding, about Jason slinking out the side door, but it didn't hit me like it used to. Then one afternoon, I got invited to another wedding. My first instinct was to say no, But the couple was two friends from college who'd been together since forever. The kind of relationship that made you believe in the word meant to be. So I went. Walking into that reception, I braced myself for the sting, the reminder of what I'd lost. But instead, I found myself smiling. I watched them dance, watched their families laugh, and I didn't feel bitterness. During the speeches, the bride's father said something that stuck with me. Love is about choosing someone every day, even when it's hard, and the right person will make choosing them feel easy. I didn't have that yet, but I realized I wasn't in a rush to find it. For the first time in a long time, I was okay with being on my own. When I left that night, I stepped out into the cool evening air. No weight on my chest, no ache in my gut, just a quiet sense of relief. I was free.